Hiya, teacher friends. Welcome to my channel. I'm right back in the same place where I usually am, just taking the video from a different angle. I'm super excited to tell you about a new change that I've made on iTalki. Once again, I've gone from working full-time on iTalki to working part-time, as I am a student now, and I want to share with you some of the differences between working full-time and part-time. I want to talk to you about the challenges, the affordances, and hopefully I'll give you a little bit of clarity of how your life could be as either a full-time or part-time teacher. I also want to answer a big question today of if you could really work full-time on iTalki throughout the whole year. And believe me, my opinion on this has changed a little bit over the past year, so stay tuned for that answer. But first, before we dive in, there's a little PSA that I have to give to my viewers. First of all, I am so thankful for all of the support that I've gotten from the community. I really never thought that my videos would attract so much positivity on a space like YouTube, so I'm so happy about that, and I'm very grateful. However, there's one other change I've made to my YouTube channel. Recently, I've gotten so many questions and comments which have been very engaging and very affirming. Unfortunately, or fortunately, some of them are related to kind of functionalities and technicalities with iTalki. All right, so disclaimer, this may be the elephant in the room, but I just want to lay it out straight up. I have zero affiliation with iTalki. I have never received any correspondence with iTalki aside from the correspondence that usual teachers get, i.e., daily emails with confirmation reminders of your lessons. I have never had any sort of sponsorship. I've never had any sort of discussion or communication with iTalki. The only reason I have this channel is actually to help teachers just like yourselves and students just like some of yourselves as well. All right. So on that note, I have to say that with the growth of my channel, there are quite a few comments that are asking me kind of questions, functional, technical questions, such as questions related to, accessing, navigating through the application. For example, how to set up packages, what to do if a student doesn't show up, how to change one's price, how to change one's schedule, how to give refunds. Another kind of type of question I get a lot is about how to improve your profile if it's normal to not have student booking by so-and-so date. I'd like to tell everybody I want to get to all of your questions and interact with them. However, some of them I can't really answer because I'm not in the position to answer them, i.e. the technical questions. And other ones are a little bit repetitive. I have, hours of free videos for you that answer these questions. So if I'm not getting to these questions in the future, that's the reason why. Just search on through my channel and you'll see areas where you could get this information. But as I said, I have zero affiliation with iTalki. And on that note, I just want to give new advice, fresh advice to teachers. And if there are any topics that I haven't touched on yet, please just type them down in the box below. But if I don't respond to you, you could still post a question. And that way maybe another teacher could respond to your question if they have the answer. But I won't be responding to technical or function-based questions from this moment onwards. Cool? Cool. All right, so let's get started. Full-time versus part-time teacher. So recently I've reverted back to being a part-time teacher just like I was before this time last year. I am pursuing my master's degree in applied linguistics. That's basically the reason why I've gone back to being a part-time teacher. And I've made a few changes. The first major change that I've made is to my schedule. This is the first time that I've really limited down how many lessons I'm teaching. I'm trying to teach 30 lessons per week. Yeah. Those could be 30-minute lessons, 45 or 60-minute lessons. It doesn't really matter. 30 lessons a week. Um, I also had to take off one day a week, which are Saturdays. And this is kind of nice because this is like the first time, I think, since I started on iTalki that I have one day off consistently. I've seen some comments about like how wild it is that I have full availability 7 days a week. And I know in some people's minds this is really taxing and it's really annoying. For me, it's been absolutely fantastic because it's not like people book every day anyway, right? And this just allows more traffic to be attracted to my page. So I'm excited about it, and it has not been a problem. However, now with the amount of reading that I have to do and the amount of studying, things are a little bit different. And for that reason, I have limited my availability. So here's how it works. Once 5 lessons are booked for a given date, boom, I book off that date. No more availability for that date. And if you're a student just like me, or if you're working part-time on iTalki, this could work for you as well, a similar kind of figure. So keep as much availability as possible. And that way, especially if you have a high price or if you're really looking for students big time, then there's a higher chance, potentiality that students will book. You'll be higher up on the algorithm. Like, everything will benefit you in terms of the algorithm and the search tab. However, you could just kind of book off the date whenever, whatever your limit is. 2 people, 3 people, 4 classes, whatever it may be. So that's the first major change that I made, changing my calendar. Another major change that I made was actually to my curriculum. Now, as I'm squeezing down and condensing my schedule, I'd like to supplement that with a quality over quantity approach. For a long time, I just focused on quantity, attracting as many students as possible. Now what I'm really trying to do is to have as high quality lessons as I possibly can. Yeah, so with that, I've been modifying my curriculum over and over again. A few weeks back, I actually made a video about my curriculum and curriculum development. There have been a lot of changes ever since then. Yeah, and I can't wait in the near future. Ideally, I could share some of my secrets with you. But for the time being, I'm just trying to make sure that I have the highest quality classes for my students, and that way I'm able to charge more. So on that note, let's talk about money. How much was I making before and how much am I making now? Well, if you look at my video from maybe 3 months ago in June 2021, I spoke about how much money I've been making on iTalki. At that point, I was making $4,000 in a month for a few months, actually. Yeah. Now, this September, now that I'm kind of squeezing down and condensing my hours, of course, I'm going to be making a little bit less. But I like to think that on average, per class, I'll be making, maybe 20 USD, give or take, after iTalki takes their tax and all that. Now, if I have 5 classes a day, as I told you, then that'll be about 100 USD a day. 6 days a week, that would be 600 a week. And for me, that's a really healthy budget for a student. And for a lot of people as well. And all of this information, by the way, it's not to brag. I know that a lot of YouTubers start their videos saying that they don't mean to brag. I try to avoid that because I think that my listeners know that I'm not trying to brag, given the amount of free information I give out to my listeners. I think it should be clear that I am not just out here to kind of gloat or to boast or anything like that. But I'll put it out there just so that it's been said. I'm not bragging about how much I'm making. I'm just happy about how much I'm making, and I want to make things realistic and transparent for you. So there you go. My idea is that I'm going to be making about 600 a week. So totally happy with that. Still with me? All right, let's go. So those are a few of the changes that I've made going from full-time to part-time on iTalki. Now I want to paint a picture. Now that I've done this a few times, I want to paint the picture of a timeline of working part-time versus full-time on iTalki. And I'd like to give you a little bit of my feedback just so that you could get an idea of working full-time or part-time, and to consider some of the pros and cons of each. So first of all, I began working full-time on iTalki. That was in like December of 2019, and in January it was just flooding with classes. You know, I kept working full-time until the summer of 2020, actually, and that's when my the amount of lessons that I was getting started to kind of dip. But I still had like full availability, or at least 8 hours, 9 hours per day. After that, in the fall of 2020, I became a student, so I had to kind of condense my hours a little bit, condense my schedule, right? So I lost a few students, and I've explained in previous videos, I was learning a lot on iTalki, so every time I was learning, that was taking an hour away of time that I could be working on iTalki, of course. So I was really busy, and of course with school as well, I was incredibly busy. So basically, after that, I was working part-time all the way until like maybe March of this year, 2021. And then I began working full-time again. And boom, I just had waves of students in March, April, May, June, July, and it was honestly beautiful. August, I took a little bit of a hiatus, going on holiday and taking trips and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely, I had a good run, 5-month run of working full time on iTalki. So as I said, great money, right? Exactly what I'd want. I had a lot of students. I had no problem working as much as I was working. I was probably completing like 60 hours a week. Not 60 hours, but 60 lessons a week. So if you consider some of those are 30-minute lessons, it probably equated to about 50 hours a week, which is a lot, I know. Working 7 days a week as well. And of course, my availability was completely full. But at this point, I was still kind of figuring it out, even though I was I probably am still figuring it out. I'm constantly making changes in my teaching, and I'm sure the future me will look back at this video like, damn, he has no idea, which is just the fun and is just the magic of the experience. But anyway, I had a lot of availability. So one, I suppose, con would be that you do have to have a lot of availability to teach full-time. One pro is that you could make a lot of money on iTalki if you teach full-time, especially if you're a professional teacher. Yeah, so that's definitely, those are a couple things to keep in mind right there. So I could compare the first time that I worked full-time, the first block in 2020, to this past block 2021. Each time it was in like the spring, late spring, and the early summer. The first time I was just focusing on quantity, and I have no regrets about this. I played the long game. Look, like, one of the most important things on iTalki, it's your numbers. I know that there are professional teachers on iTalki who just kind of start off at $50 a pop. Maybe it works out for them. Clearly somebody's booking their lessons. That's excellent. I don't know how long these teachers actually last on iTalki though. And I'd be welcome if anybody has this story to like throw it in the comment section below, but I'm not positive that these teachers are on there for the long haul. Like, they may just kind of throw this on there and just like, okay, let's see if anyone books these classes. I really don't know. But for me, the first time I worked full-time, it was just like lesson, like as much quantity as possible. This past time, it was a lot about quantity, but it was also a lot about money. And I was able to make probably triple or quadruple the amount that I made. Like if I taught the same amount of students that I had in January of 2020, that amount of classes in April of 2021, it's probably 4 or 5 times the amount of money. And that's because I found my niche. I improved the quality of my classes. I had my statistics were a lot higher, right? Like 2,500 lessons or 2,000 lessons. And that's one of the reasons why it is so important to just go for it and just try to get as many students as you can when you're starting, for the experience. I know everybody's different. Some people just don't have the patience nor the time for that. No problem. Teacher, and you really want to get into teaching, there are other things. I know this is cliche, but there are things aside from the money that are very important with teaching on iTalki. And that's why for full-time teachers, it's good to just go for quantity at the beginning. And this could also pay off when you're working part-time. So let's talk about the pros and the cons of part-time. The pros, definitely less time dedicated to teaching. I feel like I'm on vacation. I'm like, I have 5 hours and then boom, I'm off the clock, right? This all depends on your lifestyle, where you're from, how much, it depends on a lot of things, right? But that's one nice thing about working part-time, that, working on iTalki could really consume you. And I see this with new teachers. I've had teacher consultations with some of my lovely viewers who have just kind of shared with me like, whoa, this is really overwhelming. I'm just getting so many students and I don't know what to do. And I know the feeling. Like working on iTalki could completely consume you, because it's just like a dopamine hit to get so many students, and especially if you hadn't worked for a while, or if you're really desperate to get a job, like seeing the numbers come in, you're kind of like weary of pulling the plug or like closing off slots in your schedule, because you're just so excited to be attracting so many students, right? And a lot of the time, more often than not, we realize after the fact that we bit off more than we could chew, right? So that's just a part of growing, I suppose, but it is really nice to only have like 5 hours a day. That's one of the good things. Of course, a con would be less money for me, for sure. Aside from that, working part-time has given me more time to actually develop my curriculum, which is a really important thing as well. I am one of those like mad people who actually enjoys doing this. So I think that this is kind of like a guilty pleasure that I have at this moment. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. Could you teach full-time on iTalki the year round? So I have never done it. I've never had my calendar open the whole time, but this is my honest opinion on this. No. For me, as a Canadian, considering the cost of living in Canada, considering being a teacher, and the amount of students that are on iTalki, the amount of teachers that are on iTalki, there's no question. It's a little bit of the elephant in the room. I've had some viewers comment on my videos regarding the saturation of teachers. The amount of English teachers on iTalki has doubled since I checked in March. Like, it was $4,000 in March. It's almost $8,000 now. Meaning 8,000 teachers. It is literally doubling. And this just like crunching all the numbers and looking at it, it kind of confirms what I always knew deep down, but I was crazy enough to try to pursue it and test it in general. Teaching on iTalki forever, I don't think it's possible. Full-time all the year round, with all the inconsistency and the being unsure, it's not possible. Now, with that being said, some of us have the make hay while the sun shines approach. So some people would like to do kind of what I've done and just work their behinds off for like the 3, 4 months when they're really getting a lot of students, so that it could kind of get you through the rest of the year. I'd say for me, I've probably had like 8 or 9 real strong months of the year out of the past 2 years. Very nice. However, I have to keep in mind that I am a Canadian teacher. I am a younger guy, so some people want a younger male teacher for one reason or another. Um, I am a professional teacher as well, and I have experience with IELTS preparation, you know? So those things have all helped me with actually getting to where I am right now with my students. Um, so there's definitely no saying that you will for sure be able to work right the way around the clock. But I'm still trying to figure it out and trying to figure out ways that I could um, keep students. You know, I've tried this with giving homework. I've tried this with giving report cards, and I found these are ways to keep students for a longer amount of time. But I wouldn't exactly call this damage control. I've really enjoyed my time on iTalki, and I'm going to work on iTalki as long as I can, as long as the platform is around, you know. However, it was never really my plan to work on iTalki, just on iTalki full time. If it was my plan, I wouldn't have applied to school last year and to university this year to actually try to further my professional development. That's all to eventually get a different job. Um, so, if iTalki is really busy in the summer months, then you're in business, right? You could work, whatever your job is. If you work in the winter, or like if you have seasonal work, then in the summer you could just like work really hard on iTalki, or maybe working on iTalki is more busy in the winter for you, for your demographic, for your country where you live. Beautiful. Then you could do it in the winter time, and it could be full time for that amount of time. However, I have to be honest. For me, working on iTalki for 2 years, as I said, it's about 8 or 9 months per year where it has really been good for me, where I've gotten a lot of students for that time. Um, if you're thinking about doing something else and getting another job, I would absolutely suggest keeping your iTalki profile for part-time teaching. One last note, I would just like to be clear that working full-time on iTalki, it's not possible for me. But for you, depending on where you live, it very well might be possible. It might be able to support your life if you're living in a country where the currency is a little bit lower, and maybe you're traveling, you're an expat or something like that. Yeah, like if rent is cheaper and all that jazz, you may be able to, thrive off of the amount of money that you make on iTalki. If you have some sort of social media platform, and go above and beyond to attract students, I see some teachers on iTalki who are definitely making enough to support them all the year round. So just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean that it can't work for you. You really need to evaluate and look at your budget, look at other teachers who are from the same kind of from the same demographic, or the same the same demographic as you, and you'll be able to gain a better understanding of how likely it is for you to work on iTalki full time. But as I said, I'm working part-time right now. I'll probably go back to full-time, if I have like a 2-week break or a 3-week break from school. And I'll keep adding this to my experience so I can let you know how I do. And hopefully that will give you a better idea of how you could do on iTalki. So we'll leave it right there. That was a little bit of a rant. I thought we would take a break from all of the tutorial type videos that I've been showing you recently, so I could just kind of give it to you raw. That's what's going on with me. If you have any questions, please throw them in the box below. I would be happy to address them. As I said before, if you have any experience as a full-time teacher, part-time teacher, please let us know as well, because I know that this is different for everybody, and my story is not the be-all and end-all. It's still being written actually on iTalki. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and keep smiling.